So I apologize for being late. The AUSA for a Naval Academy graduate did the greatest job of operational deception that I've ever seen. I was standing over there waiting to go after General McMaster. And it was great to go after a 4-star or a 3-star general because you can sit there and you can say, okay, I can contradict that, I can agree with that. But then I realized when they were putting this other panel up there that I'm in the wrong place. Anyway, so I'm sorry. Well, thank you for the introduction, and thank you for those of you that are here that are here to listen. I do want to spend the time here and talk about a couple of things. One is the department's strategy, our strategic objectives, and how we're going about, especially, primarily from a research and development perspective, how we're going about trying to meet those objectives. And it's very important that folks internalize the message, if I can get it right, because as I'll go through my slides, and I think it won't be a surprise to anybody, we don't have a lot of money. Even though we have a lot of money, we don't have a lot of money to spend, and we've got a lot of priorities. So let me go through, I guess I own this. There we are. So the defense strategic guidance, and people will say, gosh, that's an old slide. You got the president's still there, but that guy on the right, Secretary Hagel, he's gone. But the point of having Hagel, Secretary Hagel in that picture is that the strategic guidance has not changed. So we've got a new secretary in Ash Carter, a terrific guy, but he's embraced the strategic guidance because it makes sense as to what kind of world we're in today and where we're going, and for people to understand that we are going to be smaller and leaner. I mean, I don't have to tell the Army that. I mean, they already know it. They've been feeling the pain for quite a while. We need to rebalance our global posture. A lot of talk about what's commonly called the pivot. We're going to pivot to Asia. How are we going to do that? Do we have the assets to do it? Do we have the people to do it? Some of it is going to have to be done with manpower. Some of it's going to have to be done with technology. But the third bullet there is really how it's going to get done. It's that we need alliances, we need partners around the world to make sure that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish when we want to accomplish it. And so that gets us to the fourth bullet, the anytime, anywhere. I actually think I borrowed that from a movie someplace, but it still works. And then we ultimately have to protect and prioritize our key investments. And in a time when you have a lot of money and you're getting a lot of money in supplementals and other things, you don't worry so much about priority. And I have to say that this didn't start in 2002 with the first big supplemental for the Iraq War. I want to say it went back about 8 or 9 years before that when we started getting supplementals for the Kosovo War. Now, they paled in comparison to the supplementals that we got in Iraq, but the issue there is that we started to lose the fiscal discipline that we so sorely needed to grow for the future. When somebody hands you an extra $8 billion a year, you're like a kid in a candy store. Technological superiority, Ash Carter, no question about it. This is really an issue today because, as Frank Kendall, my boss, the Undersecretary for Acquisition, will say, that superiority is not assured. I mean, we don't necessarily have superior capability, but we're being challenged everywhere. And the challenges aren't really just from China or Russia. And believe it or not, despite the fact the Soviet Union's gone, we see what's happening in Chechnya and other places. The Russians are very, very good technologically. They've built some very, very sophisticated weapons that we are now seeing pop up in places around the world we'd rather not see them pop up. But we're also being challenged technologically by non-state actors. So you can read in the paper about how some of these ISIS groups and others are using cyber against us, and how IEDs, have become the most sophisticated, unsophisticated weapon of warfare that we have seen in the last 20 years. And this thing, we've spent billions of dollars, not just us, but a lot of people have spent a lot of money trying to deal with a technology that I only wish we were as nimble at being able to change as quickly as you can change an IED and make it and respond to counters that we're putting out there. Sequestration. If you don't know what sequestration is, I could spend a whole lot of time, but I think that probably everybody's read about it. It's actually, I take that back. I'm being a little too glib because I live in Washington, D.C., and Washington is considered to be the bubble. It is a bubble. Okay? Everything happens inside that bubble. The world turns inside that bubble. Very few things happen outside that bubble. So we live sequestration every day. We live the impact or the potential impact of severe budget cuts. But when you get outside the bubble, what I find is that sometimes people don't understand what sequestration is, or they really don't understand the impact. And we need to do a much better job of educating individuals on what the impact of sequestration, and educating the Congress on what the impact of sequestration is going to be. And I'm not sure that in this budget climate, with the kind of enmity that goes on between various factions and fractions of political parties, that we're going to see any kind of real agreement on what the department needs or what the nation needs, frankly, going forward to fund all the changes that need to be made. But I put this slide up here and I say, regardless of sequestration, we still have to provide national security to this country. We have to do that, and we need to figure out how we're going to do that. So every dollar counts. And why again do we really have to talk about providing national security? This slide we call the challenges. This is the rise of the commons, and so for those of you who are sophisticated or live in the world of aerospace and defense, these things all mean something to you. But if you're a big company, you think more in terms of, wow, modern electronic warfare. Well, that's got to be the Chinese and their air defense systems and ballistic and cruise missile defense. But it's everybody. I'm going back to what I said before. These are actors, these are state actors, non-state actors that are out there that are building systems that are challenging our legacy systems to the point where we've never been challenged before. I'm not going to go as far as some of my colleagues who have said we've lost dominance in certain areas, but only because we haven't done a good job of analyzing it. But frankly, if we haven't lost it, we're close. And if we don't do something about it, we are going to lose it. Technology offset strategy. I'm going to hold that slide for a second because I want to go to this one, which is the industry engagement. The Defense Innovation Initiative was announced by Deputy Secretary Bob Work several months ago while Secretary Hagel was here. The initiative, and it's important, and I will read the 5 pieces here because for Helena and Tom Keeley, everything they're doing in COMSIM, they're not paying me, but fits into this. So the Defense Innovation Initiative is about investing in, God, I hate that word innovative. It's not my word. These aren't my slides. I don't use it because nobody knows what it means, but I will use it because everybody likes it. So innovative ways, but it's really about people. It's about wargaming. We don't think about wargaming anymore, and we keep saying, "Oh, you know what? We don't need to wargame." Well, when we got to World War II and we had to go fight the Japanese, there was nothing that the Japanese Navy did in the Pacific that the U.S. Navy had not gained at the Naval War College in the 20-some years, the intervening years between World War I and World War II. We had thought about it, we had looked at it, but you know what? We weren't necessarily gaming the Japanese at the time, we were gaming the British. The British had the best Navy in the world. Culturally, they were the best Navy in the world. By training, they were the best Navy in the world. But we looked at it, we trained against it, we gamed it, made a lot of sense. So let me go back to the technology offset. So the technology offset, and I'll get into the long-range research and development program plan, but technology offset strategy is one way that we're going to be able to, we're hoping that we're going to be able to stay ahead in the game. This will be, we've talked about a technology offset strategy. We've got the third one that we are now trying to define what investments we want to make in it. The first one we kind of say was late 1950s. That's Davy Crockett, not the guy, but the weapon there. It's a tactical nuclear weapon that was a battalion-level nuclear weapon. Back then, it made a lot of sense. Thankfully, we didn't have to use it. Airland battle, 1980, really 1975. We started with what was called the first long-range research and development program plan. It was chaired by Don Hicks, who was then the chairman of Northrop Grumman, eventually going to be the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition. But they identified three technological areas that we needed to invest in for the future. There'd been a lot of work that had been done in them, but we needed to continue to invest in it. And so the Hicks panel came out. You had Bill Perry, who was the Undersecretary of Defense for Technology at the time. You had Harold Brown, who was the Secretary of Defense. And they essentially told the services, you will do this. But they did it right, because when they told the Air Force that you will invest in stealth technology, they also said, but we're not going to make you pay for it. We're going to find the money and help you pay for this, because you know what? You've got your own problems and your own budgets, and they had to pay for some of it. And it worked in the Air Force, didn't work in the Navy for similar reasons. But three areas that we invested in: precision navigation and timing, stealth, precision munitions. Arguably night vision came out of that time, so we put it on the list. But the real key to that was airland battle, which came in the 1980s. So we were investing in these areas. Airland battle was all about how do we offset a major competitor called the Soviet Union by getting them. We had to go deep. We couldn't confront them at the forward edge of the battle area. We had to go deep. We needed these technologies. We needed long-range precision strike. We didn't have stealth yet. We needed precision navigation and timing because we had to get firepower in the back. And it worked. So we want to use technology to affect capability erosion. We have to use engineering, current challenges, areas that we're looking at investing in now: electronic warfare, missile defense, cyber. Again, it's in all the newspapers. Cyber soaks up a lot of money. Integrated air defense systems and counter-integrated air defense systems. The Chinese have one of the most sophisticated air defense systems we've ever seen, and every year it gets harder and harder to penetrate given the systems that the legacy systems we have. And it also is pushing us out further and further. So we talked about that. Now I want to go back to this long-range research and development program plan, which I talked about, which is part of the technology offset. Steve Welby, our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Systems Engineering, and also the nominee for the Assistant Secretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, has been leading this effort. It will be finished in the next several months, and what's going to come out of that is a report of essentially recommendations on what are the areas that we need to continue, what are the technology-based areas that we need to continue to invest in at higher rates, and why we're investing in those areas. This has not been done in a vacuum. Steve and his team have gone out, they've gotten input from industry, there have been opportunities for industry to send stuff in. They've met with a lot of people, met with a lot of companies, I can't tell you where we are right now because I'm not allowed to. Sorry. Better buying power. How are we going to get there? How do we do all this? So better buying power, for those of you who have, again, if you live inside the bubble, you think about it, this is our process. This was started by Undersecretary of Defense Ash Carter when he was the Undersecretary for Acquisition, had Better Buying Power 1.0, focusing on the best practices, essentially got into the pricing issue, got into affordability, should cost, will cost, performance-based contracting. Then Dr. Carter became the Deputy Secretary, Frank Kendall became the Undersecretary, and he continued with Better Buying Power 2.0, which we focused on what we call critical thinking. We got into the supplier incentive programs, started talking about things like open systems architecture, trying to define it. If anybody's got a great definition of open systems architecture, I'm happy to take it. And now we're getting ready to launch Better Buying Power 3.0. The implementation guidance for that should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. And that's all about technology. I mean, there are some issues there about contracting, but it's all about innovation again. It's in the document, so I have to say it. It's about technical excellence. It's about speed to market. A lot of good things that are going to come out of that. It's going to be a long implementation memo. It's going to take us time to sort through it. We've actually been talking to industry. We've got, I think, probably 170 comments from industry on it already. And like everything else, we'll be happy, you'll be happy in some areas, and most of the time, none of us are going to be happy. So the defense research and engineering strategy, this is where I live. We've got 3 enduring principles in defense R&E. Mitigate current and anticipated threat capabilities, affordably enable new or extended systems, and create technology surprise. None of this is new. These are enduring principles, and I mean that. You go back to 1958, you go back to 1955, and you look at the research and engineering documents at that time and their strategies, those words are there, except for the last one, where creating technology surprise. It's always been preventing technology surprise. We're not doing that anymore. Preventing technology surprise means you're sitting back waiting for somebody to do something to you and you got to react to it. We've been very good at that for 60, 70 years, but we're not that good at it anymore. So let's go out and create surprise for the enemy. Let's create cost-imposing strategies on the enemy or adversaries and get them not to do things before they think about doing things. What I'm going to go through here, I'm not going to read these, I'm going to let you look at them. The slides are available, and I want you to go just to show you some of the things that we're doing in each of the areas. This one on mitigating current and future threats. And I want to foot stomp here because none of these are PowerPoint. The only PowerPoint up here is the PowerPoint I'm showing you. These are all systems that we have developed in the military, with not just ourselves, but with partners, with industry partners, small companies, big companies, and we've gotten them in the field. So, and they're actually mitigating current and future threats. The first 2 up there is Space and Missile Command, NanoSat program, Kestrel-I, and arguably the automated navigation, guidance, and experimentation for local space, otherwise known as ANGELS. It's all about space. It's all about getting rapid reconstitution of space. Space is a very fragile area for us going into the future. It is the backbone for our command controls, our C4ISR networks. Without space, I had one 4-star tell me recently, he's not going to war. That's pretty damaging. Affordability, current future system. Steel Tiger. Steel Tiger is a commercial surface search radar, solid state radar. If we can get it done, and we're using it, we're prototyping it, we're testing it, if we can get that thing in a field, anybody here from the Navy, because you're going to get mad at me, we will displace a multi-billion-dollar Navy program with basically a $5,000 radar. But that's because we've been able to do things today in a much organized, much faster. We didn't have to go through the 50 wickets and 25-year development cycles. Stiletto was developed by a gentleman by the name of Art Zabrowski, who was actually the founder, one of the fathers of net-centric warfare. Totally composite ship. The Navy only bought one. It's turned out to be a great test platform for a lot of the prototyping activities that we have ongoing today. Let's see here. So again, for major prototyping activities, I wanted to use this as an example for those of you who like airplanes. We actually started looking at a new engine. We knew that for the 5th generation fighters and beyond that we would need an engine that was longer range, that was more capable, that had more power, and would cost less, use less fuel, cost less. So we started with Advent, Adaptive Versatile Engine Technology in 2005, took it through in 13 with a technology demonstration that we changed the name to Adaptive Engine Technology Demonstration. And then we are actually going to award 2 contractors with for a transition program starting sometime next year. And this has moved fast, and we're going to get this out in the field, and we'll get it out fast. Creating technology surprise. There's this aerospace innovation initiative. It currently, a lot of people think it's focused only on airplanes and currently focused on 6th generation, but one of the things you will not see in the AII description is 6th generation. The F-22, the F-35 are described as 6th generation aircraft. We're looking at next generation. Next generation may not be 6th generation. If we're going where some folks are going to allow us to go with the technologies that we're seeing, you know, next generation is going to be 8th generation and not 6th generation. What we don't want is we don't want to end up with 4th generation. And then once again, just successful transitions. Again, you'll have the slides. You can look them up. I can talk to you about them later if you want. All very interesting technologies, all very useful. So how do we do all this from a research and engineering perspective? It's called Reliance 21. It's not new. The Reliance program has been around since the 90s, but last year the science and technology executives from the services got together with the Assistant Secretary for Research and Engineering and said, hey, you know what? We've got to organize better. We've got $11 billion in science and technology money, and we're spending it. There's got to be a better way to spend it. So they said, okay, we've got this framework called Reliance, and we'll call it Reliance 21, for portfolio management infrastructure. The heart of Reliance 21, and if you don't know about it, are the communities of interest. These communities of interest we've got 17 of them. For those of you who are as old as I am, you probably remember defense technology areas. They disappeared last year. They were replaced by the communities of interest. There are 17 of them. They're cross-cutting, they're cross-domain, they're cross-service. There they are. You know, they're as close to, they cover just about every issue that we have. There are issues that come up every once in a while that don't fit neatly into one of these communities of interest, but we try to work through that. When we first set it up, we started binning the communities of interest by mission areas or by focus areas, mission, capability, or technology. Good idea. As each of these groups started working, and these are groups from across the services, as they started working, we saw that there was overlap among the mission, capability, and technology. And these folks are talking to each other. They're working with each other. We're actually getting some pretty good roadmaps. The roadmaps that we're asking them to build are investment grade, supposed to be investment quality, supposed to be able to take it to your science and technology executive in the service or the S&T executive in the department at the OSD level and say, this is where you need to spend your money, and this is why. So, how many people have ever heard of the Defense Innovation Marketplace? There's that word again. Sorry. I own it, and it's my word. So the Defense Innovation Marketplace was set up about 4 years ago, and this is strictly a way to get information out and get information in. What we found is that with, especially with small businesses, mid-sized businesses, people didn't know where to go to get information about acquisition and R&D inside the Department of Defense. If you were a small business and you went to FedBizOps, by the time you fumbled your way through FedBizOps, you know, that award was already made and probably completed. So we said, okay, we're going to do this better. So we have a website. It's called the Defense Innovation Marketplace.mil. And on there we have all the S&T priorities. We have all the R&D priorities. We have a section for RFPs. We have a section for RFIs. We've got an area there which is near and dear to me, which is called Independent Research and Development. Allows companies that are taking advantage of the Independent Research and Development Program that the government offers. We reimburse industry about $5 billion a year for it. They can input their projects there, and so people can look at them. It's a secure portal. It's I have no contractors at all, whether they're CETA or support contractors. Only government people in the acquisition R&D community can even look at that portal. So we really take take to heart the proprietary nature of the information that goes in there. I encourage everybody to go ahead and look at it and use it and comment on it. If you like to see it fixed differently, I will be happy to do that. And so this is the one of the things that you will find on the Innovation Marketplace. We call them Technology Interchange Meetings, TIMs. There's a section for the TIMs. The TIMs were actually started in 2013. We called it a virtual technology interchange at the time because nobody had money to travel, and was set up out of Wright Pat. The military departments got together and said, let's talk about, we want to know what's happening with human systems. So there were 200 projects submitted by 40 companies. Those projects were reviewed. They were necked down to about 50 projects, 19 companies. There was an exchange of information, some of it virtually, some of it actually face-to-face. It's what I call Shark Tank DoD style. For those of you who know Shark Tank, we got the companies in. We had subject matter experts from the government who reviewed these things and then gave instant feedback to the companies who were making the presentation, telling them what we wanted, what we didn't like. The DoD style, unfortunately, at that time was we didn't have any money. You know, at Shark Tank, somebody hands you a check. Here we didn't have any money. We set up CRADAs. CRADAs work great if you're a big company. They don't work so well if you're a small company. And but we're fixing that. We've had 6 technology interchanges since then, and each one of the communities of interest have agreed to host a technology interchange meeting. And so go to the Defense Innovation Marketplace. You will see those as they come up. You're more than welcome to enter in your information, and again, it's a subject matter expert panel. I don't make any of the decisions. I'm a lawyer. They don't trust me in the world of science and technology. And so this is what I call my alignment slide. Everything I talked about today kind of fits is someplace on this slide, and I put it on here just to show people that we're just not making this stuff up, that it all does work, that we work together, and that's it. I will take questions. Is that good, huh?
Good speaker, sir.
Yeah, you're going to have to tell me who you are.
Vikram Manikonda from Intelligent Automation. You talked about cyber, you talked about a lot of areas. What are your thoughts on social media?
Oh, I think it's huge. I like it.
Where does it play in different strategies?
Social media. Well, there's a lot of work. There's, so there are a lot of technology areas I didn't talk about. Social media, the ability to do large data management, the ability to manipulate data, the ability to track things using social media, the ability to use social media to actually, I talked about wargaming. You know, we tend to do wargaming in a traditional sense. Using social media, you can actually do wargamings much faster, much cheaper, and generally end up with a better result. So I don't know, I mean, I'd be happy to hear what you know.
Let me rephrase my question. Compared to most international countries, the United States is lagging in its use of social media for military, for research, for other activities, which are driven by our privacy policies. So, which hinders our attack, to counter the attacks of ISIL and other terrorist organizations. Is there some thought in the Army or DoD leadership where that will change?
Well, I tell you, I have to be very careful here because I can't get into the details, but I don't agree with the first part of your statement. Okay, there's a lot of work going on that we can't talk about. You know, whether we are number 1 or number 20 in the world. You know, the difference between number 1 and number 20 in this area is not very far. And so there's a lot of work going on. You know, I think what I'm hearing is that you have not been able to figure out where to go with something that you have. And you know, I tell people this, I look at our job in research and engineering in the OSD world as technology scouting. If you have an idea, I'm happy to try to introduce you to somebody. You know what, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an engineer. I learned a long time ago I could make a horse go to water. But it's those smart scientists and engineers who haven't figured out how to make the darn thing drink yet. And so So I can get you the introduction. I can't guarantee that it's going to go further.
Thank you.
You guys ought to talk.
How about opportunities?
You have to tell us who you are, Tom.
Okay, sorry, Tom Keeley, ComSec. How about opportunities to suggest new problems that some of us might foresee? Do you have a collection point for, did you consider this kind of questions?
The Defense Innovation Marketplace has a site that I'm not just saying it, we're getting ready to launch it, which is what I call a collection, the good ideas, or I call it the dumb ideas collection because I'm the only one who's allowed to have dumb ideas, but it's just for things that we just may not have thought about. Let people come in and say, hey, we've got this, we're thinking about this, we've got some science and engineering behind it. What do you think? People have cautioned me against that, saying I'm going to be spending every night and every day going through thousands and thousands of these. You know what? Somebody has to do it. It'll take me a long time, but we've got a team of people that will look at it and try to give some honest feedback to it. It doesn't answer your question right now. It's a hard problem, and wish we could solve it. I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry.
Tony Moskalski. I'm with Marshall Space Flight Center, NASA. Before I was there years ago, I was in the DoD side. And so my question is, what kind of timeline do you see where you go from ideation to realization? Because when you're talking about implementing innovative or disruptive technologies or things like that, what's a realistic timeline, given your experience, when you put this kind of program in place?
Well, I think it depends on the system. I think that, there have been a lot of GAO reports that talk about 20-year acquisition cycles to get stuff out. And that will continue in certain programs. We're trying to change that. It's hard to say what a realistic timeline is because we've given a lot of we've done a lot of thinking about the acquisition program over the years, and we've said, we got to fix this. Things have to go faster, but we haven't kind of done what a good systems engineer would do. In my view, this will get me fired. So if you repeat it, that's okay. Which is put together a process that says this is how we can do it, and these are the things we need to. But we are with better buying power and the new acquisition directive, the new 5002, trying to figure out how we can implement de-risking measures. So how do you get prototyping earlier in the system? How do you get companies using their research and development money, whether it's government reimbursed or whether it's their own money? How do we better use our contracted research and development dollars to get the bugs out of the system early? And frankly, how do we fail fast? Because I tell you what, bureaucracies are the worst at failing fast. First of all, we hate to fail. So if we're going to fail, we're going to make sure it takes 30 years to fail, because then we'll all be gone and somebody else will get blamed for it. But we got to fail fast, and we got to start over again. We've got to adopt commercial practices, and it's like Shark Tank DoD stuff. We've got to. You can't just flip a switch and say, okay, we're going to do it this way tomorrow. But everything takes time. I tell people even making a peanut butter sandwich takes time.
Yeah. Just two comments. Part of my motivation for the question is, and I compliment SMDC. They've been talking about putting lasers in the field for air defense. And I'm an old air defense officer, decades old. And so when I was 32, we were talking about putting lasers in the field for air defense. So that's a long time for it to be revisited. by the same token, or the counterpoint to that, is you get an emerging technology like going from analog to digital, and you see how digital technology has been implemented throughout many different systems, and that's, to me, extraordinarily innovative. And it's a huge success that we don't even talk about today because it's just taken for granted. But there was a time when that was something that was quickly implemented. You showed a chart about what went on in the 80s and what the focus areas were. One of those things was going analog to digital, and I think it was a huge success. So thanks for your comment.
Yeah, I have to agree with it just real quick, is that a lot of the technology-enabled capability that we see today is because of investments that we made 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, the laser example is a good one, because back when we first started thinking about lasers and said, hey, this is really cool, it would take a room this size for a battlefield laser. It was really, whether it's the digitization of technology, it's getting the size, weight, and power down, it's getting the being able to cool things, making it more efficient, to be able to get the kind of effects that you want. And especially with a laser, if you want to use a laser to damage something or to dazzle something and not destroy it, you got to be able to do that. And I think early on we weren't that capable of doing it. And I think that you're right. I think that this notion of going from analog to digital took a long time, and I'm hoping that the shift from digital to photonics to optoelectronics doesn't take as long, because we're going to light, and it's the future as far as I'm concerned.